Hello everyone, Ethersong here. In today's video, I'm going to be giving my impressions of Blue Protocol's network test, the first test held for the game since the closed beta test 3 years ago. To begin, let me first give some background to what type of game Blue Protocol is. Blue Protocol is a free-to-play, multiplayer, online action RPG being developed by Bandai Namco Online and Bandai Namco Studios in Japan. In Blue Protocol, you create your own character and become the hero of an enthralling sci-fi fantasy adventure. While in recent years we have seen a number of anime games like Genshin Impact or Tower of Fantasy be released, there are a number of things that set Blue Protocol apart. First and foremost, Blue Protocol is not another gacha game where you gamble to hope to unlock a new character. The character you make in Blue Protocol is unique and can be fully customized with a number of features such as hairstyles, outfits, and accessories. The developers have also stated that they don't want to make the game pay to win. Another defining trait of Blue Protocol is that it is a multiplayer adventure. In the main cities in the game, up to 200 players can be in the same channel. Outside in the field areas, you will also encounter a number of other players. Unique bosses regularly spawn, encouraging players to come together. Beyond that, there is also a variety of other content such as 6-player dungeon missions and 30-player raids. Even if you are a more solo-oriented player, the game offers party matching features, allowing you to jump right into the party content. If you are a player more interested in the story of games, Blue Protocol has that for you as well. It has a full-fledged story with beautifully crafted cutscenes and voice acting that will pull you in for a fantastic adventure. Next, let me give you some background about the network test. This network test was held this past weekend in Japan and has been the first test for the game since the closed beta test 3 years ago. I was also a closed beta test participant, so I may make some comparisons to it in this video. During the network test, players were limited to 4 map areas of the game: Asterleads, the main city of the game; the Asteria Plains, a vibrant grassy area located outside of Asterleads; the Bahamar Highlands, an area dotted with sharp rocks and cliffs and also home to the sacred site of the Pillar of Divinity; and finally Monte Nor Valley, an area with high mountains and a trade route running between Asterleads and Salamazad. We've also seen a desert area and town, Salamazad, revealed, but these were not accessible during the test. For the test, all 5 classes were available. These include the Blade Warden, the Twin Striker, the Keen Strider, the Spellweaver, and the Foebreaker. Players were able to play up to level 20 and the first part of the story. I played for around 20 hours during the test and mainly played the Spellweaver, which I got to level 14. My impressions will mostly be based around my experiences with the Spellweaver throughout the game. Without further ado, let me jump into my impressions of the game. Overall, my impressions of Blue Protocol were largely positive. To begin, I love the world of the game and its anime aesthetics. It has beautiful and lush environments dotted with the remains of great ruins and relics from a forgotten age. Exploring many of these areas left me in awe and eager to see more. But the game also has a cozy feel to it. The main city lit up by streetlights at night and campsites around the world were some of my favorite places to wind down at. The game's mix of fantasy and sci-fi is also intriguing and offers a wide range of sights and enemies. Futuristic technology plays just as much a part of the game as swords and magic. The customization in the game is also something I feel is very well done. Developers made a wonderful choice to have cosmetic outfits and accessories completely separated from stats. As such, right from the beginning of the game, you can enjoy collecting new clothes and accessories to mix and match without worrying about class or level restrictions. If you want, you could even wear armor on the Spellweaver or a jacket and shorts on the Blade Warden. Another thing I enjoyed about the game was its combat system. To give a brief overview, each class gets access to a variety of tactical skills to choose from. Up to 4 of these can be equipped at a time. Beyond that, there is also an ultimate skill and 2 echoes, or battle imagine as they were called in the Japanese game. These echoes can be thought of as equipping a monster and calling it forth to use its skill to aid you in battle. They can be crafted by gathering materials from defeating unique bosses that appear in the field areas. They also act as a form of stats for your character. Later on, you also get passive abilities for your character that can be equipped. Depending on what tactical skills, echoes, and abilities you equipped, a number of different playstyles is possible even with the same class. The battle system also has a number of layers to it with the elemental burst and party chain systems. First up, the elemental burst is something where, by applying elemental damage to an enemy, a gauge slowly builds up on it. By increasing this gauge, negative status effects can be applied to the enemy. If the gauge fills up completely, something called an elemental burst occurs, which is something of an elemental combo that deals a large amount of damage and has a strong effect depending on what element triggered it. Next, the party chain is a system where all parties' attacks contribute to a party combo number. By the party constantly attacking, this combo number increases and gives various buffs to your party. These systems make it so straight up damage is not the only thing of importance, but also dealing elemental damage, the type of elemental damage, and a number of hits you are dealing. What class you are using, what build you are using, what your other party members are using, all come together to make combat and party play in the game interesting. Going back to the topic of classes, I feel like I should also note that it is possible to play all classes on the same character. In addition, it is super easy to switch classes. All you need to do is equip the weapon of another class in the main town and you'll switch right to it. The level sync feature of items also deserves praise. All items will sync to your character's current level, so if you happen to have high level equipment made for one class and switch to a lower level class, you can continue using that same equipment. Another great thing about Blue Protocol is that when gathering items in the field, nearly all of them get sent back to your storage. The storage has one tab for items and one for equipment. The item tab appears to be limitless, while the equipment tab has 1,000 slots. In Blue Protocol, I never had to worry about managing my inventory or running out of room, and it felt great. While my impressions of the game were largely positive, there were a few problems that I feel like should be addressed. First up is class balance. Like I had stated earlier, I played the Spellweaver throughout the test. And the general consensus from those who participated in the test is that the Spellweaver is the worst class. This is both in regards to its damage compared to other classes, but also the feel of the class itself. Let me give a short overview of the Spellweaver's main mechanic. The Spellweaver uses something called EP to cast spells. I think this is probably short for energy points. In any case, most of the Spellweaver's damaging spells, in place of cooldown, have an EP cost. For example, their Fireball skill uses 35 EP. As such, you could cast this 2 times before you have to refill EP again. Refilling EP is done by right-clicking and standing still. However, if you take damage while refilling EP or casting a spell, you get interrupted. But while casting spells and refilling EP, you can't move. The basic game loop with the Spellweaver is cast 2 or 3 spells and then recharge EP again. This means that the Spellweaver is a very immobile class when attempting to use spells. This also means that solo play can be difficult if multiple enemies are attacking you because you will be easily interrupted. In exchange for low mobility and high-risk gameplay, one would think the Spellweaver would have high damage to make up for that. But that is not the case. It seems like the damage for the Spellweaver's spells is quite low in comparison to the other classes. Indeed, many Spellweavers in the network test found that spamming one of the class's basic attacks while jump canceling seemed to give more DPS than actually using the class's spells. As for the Spellweaver's spells, Fire Blast and the Ultimate seemed to be the only ones that did really any damage. When I was doing some testing, the Spellweaver's Fire Blast would do from around 130 to 180 damage depending on if it was charged. But a short-range lightning spell that shot 3 bolts of lightning would only do 8 damage per hit. It felt like the lightning spell was missing a digit in its damage, and it was overall a joke of a skill. And it was not just that lightning spell. Many of the class's other spells were similarly low damage. Also, because of the EP system, only a few casts of each spell was possible before having to recharge. it feels like the Spellweaver needs some heavy balancing done to both spell damage and how EP works. I will note that there is another way to refill EP other than right-click. There is a EP regeneration buff that can be applied by one skill, or a weaker version by performing a certain basic attack combination. I unfortunately was not able to test this during the network test because I encountered a bug where my EP would not recharge with this buff. But even with this buff present, I believe the core issues of quickly running out of EP and spell damage would remain. Now, let me take a step back for a moment and try to explain why these skills perhaps have such low damage. Like I had discussed earlier, there is an elemental burst system in Blue Protocol. Nearly all of Spellweaver's damaging skills apply elemental damage, meaning that the elemental gauge can quickly fill up. In addition, skills like the Spellweaver's Blizzard do multi-hit AoE damage, meaning that while single target damage is small, it can apply elemental damage to multiple enemies in addition to quickly raising the party's combo chain. As such, it feels like perhaps these kind of factors were taken into account with the Spellweaver's balance. Perhaps the importance of elemental bursts and the party chain is even greater in late game, which leads to the trade-off with damage. This is somewhat ignoring the fact that other classes can also do elemental damage by equipping elemental weapons. And perhaps the same is with the Spellweaver's EP. Maybe in late game, a slightly larger EP pool and faster EP regeneration through right-click allows for more spellcasts and better feeling gameplay. But even if this is the case, the new player experience for the Spellweaver feels like it could use work. Increase spell damage and give players some more options over just Fire Blast or basic attack spam. Also perhaps give some passive EP regeneration. Or maybe even let the Spellweaver move while casting spells or recharging EP. I think allowing movement would make the class feel a lot better overall. Beyond that, did I mention the Spellweaver also has no self-heal skill? In the end, even with all these problems, I still did have fun playing the Spellweaver. But even more so because of that, I'm hoping for improvements to be made to the class. Another big issue in the network test were drop rates. In order to progress through the story, completing certain tasks and making new equipment to raise one's battle score was necessary. However, there were a large number of required drops with ridiculously low drop rates. As such, if your luck was bad, you could be spending literally hours hoping to get certain materials in order to progress through the game. I personally was spending, a really long time trying to get these mushrooms, and you'll find lots of horror stories about mushrooms on the Japanese Twitter for our Blue Protocol network test. But aside from the mushrooms as well, there was a number of other key items as well. And until you get these key items, you could be blocked from leveling up your adventurer rank, or participating in dungeons, or continuing the story because of a low battle score. Thankfully, these drop rates already seem to be on the developer's radar, and there are plans to improve them. Overall, while I did have some issues, the network test was a great experience. Compared to the closed beta test, the dungeons, mounts, the inventory system, and the combat all felt improved. It has been a long time since I have found myself so absorbed with an online game like this. I can see myself playing the game for a long time once it's released. Even so, I'm not turning a blind eye to some of the more problematic sides of the game. I'm hoping for improvements made to class balance and item drop rates. Also, I'm interested to hear more about how monetization will work in the game. The developers have stated that they plan to have another live stream with a roadmap of the game, so perhaps then we can learn more about the game's release date, content at release, future updates, and monetization to come. In any case, I can't wait to play the game. Hope to see you all there in the world of Blue Protocol. Later!